So what we'll do today, very quickly, yes, we have an evaluation here. We'll get to that right shortly, okay? But what happens when there's dominant traits that you don't have a total masking over of a specific trait? And that happens, as you can see in this example, with cattle. Because one of the things that we see when it comes to pea plants, the easiest way to look at this is if you're talking about plant height, okay? So if we're looking for the alleles for plant height, you have this one, which means, of course, tall, and then a lowercase letter would mean short then. So there's three different combinations of alleles that you would utilize or observe with this. And what we see happening is, what do these two have in common as far as a genotype is concerned? Excuse me, phenotype, I mean. Yeah, they both would be tall. And then this combination then would result in a short plant. So what we're saying here is, even though that short allele is in there, the dominant one masks over, okay? Or however you want to say, powers over, or whatever it is that works in your mind to know that if that dominant allele is present, that's what you're going to see, that it's going to be tall. Okay? So what we see happening here with cattle then, okay, when it comes to codominance in this case, you're all familiar, being growing up here in the Midwest, that there's different species of cattle or breeds. And probably, in my mind, especially here in South Dakota, there's probably three main breeds that are probably the most valuable. And you're going to have your own opinion for various reasons. But if you had to pick one of what I would say are the big three, who would they possibly be? Okay, that's what I would tend to agree with. So this would be the genetic makeup for an Angus. Okay. So that means it would be all black. Okay? What might another one be? Okay? A Hereford then, all right? Which means Hereford is a common name for what we would observe as this. An animal with a completely red body, well, red in whatever you want to concern or view as being red, with a white face then. And then when you cross these two, what would you receive then? A black-white face then. So what we see happening here is, notice that all of these have capital letters as far as their traits. That's what codominance means. And in this case, when we look at it, now you're putting both of them together. Now you've got the black body with the white face, okay? So the black body of this Angus, and then the white face from that of the Hereford, and that's why it's a codominant cross. They're both being expressed at the same time. Because if you go back to this type of logic, where you remember we said if this is a dominant cross with plant height, that tall allele is going to cause that plant to look like what? It's going to be tall. So what you would observe, if this is tall, and then this is just what we're saying as far as height here and here, when you have that recessive allele in here, it doesn't mean that it's going to be halfway in between the two. Does that make sense? Okay, you have that short allele in there, it doesn't make it a medium height. Okay, I suppose it might from time to time, but in general, if it's a completely dominant trait like what this is, you don't get any intermediate forms. It gets masked over by that dominant trait. Okay, so with that being said, now when you have both of them being expressed, that's where you get that third different type of a makeup. And I think there's a problem like that on your paper, correct? Would you rather just work on that one rather than using this as an example? Just go over the one that's on your paper. I was going to do this and just say, well, let's just use this as an example. We can always come back and do this. Okay, so we're going to leave this up here though. So what does it say though on your paper? It says you're crossing what? Yeah, it's on the back page. Okay, what does it say about horns though? Okay, so we've got our genetic makeup, in other words, we're just kind of abbreviating for that. So here is our key. What are your alleles then for a black, white face? Look at our key. Yeah, they're going to be both capital B's, but over top of them you need what? Yeah, you need a line over one of them, because that's what our key says, okay? And then what is the genetic makeup for a red white face? Yes, it's capital B's, but what's true about that though? Yeah, they both have lines over the top. Okay. Is anybody lost right now? Okay. If we're not raising our hands or saying anything, I'm presuming that we're seeing where these letters or alleles are coming from this key that we just made. All right. So now, horns would in this example is going to be a trait where there is dominance rather than incomplete or codominant. So we would have possibly, what letter do you want to use for having horns? You could even use I's if you wanted to, or B, or you can, well, you can't use B's, you can use A's, whatever, but you're saying H, which is fine. So if that capital H is present, that means they have horns. Okay? Now, we can't use the letter N for no horns. It has to be the same letter, just a lowercase. Okay? So in that, when we see that case, and if you choose to put a line over the top, that's fine. You don't have to do that, but if you don't have very good handwriting, I suggest that you do this. So that means one of two things. You can say no horns, or polled, P-O-L-L-E-D. That's another way of saying that animal would have no horns. So you can say no horns or polled. We're going to pull our hair out, or? See, I've done that already over the years. From maybe not necessarily you ding-dongs, it predates you people. Doesn't that make you feel better? That it wasn't you people that caused this? Or maybe it's just genetics. Anyone have when you look at Dad, he's bald, or Grandpa, he's bald. What do you think when you see that? You probably don't have to worry. You can go, whew. What do you think? Probably not. Okay. But chances are, if your dad's bald, there's a pretty good chance that you will be too. Not always, but that can happen. Okay. So you said that the black-white face, okay, which is right here, had no horns, right? So the two alleles that would illustrate having no horns would be what? They have to be two lowercase h's, because if you do this, what are you saying? That it has horns. Because remember, this is the dominant trait, that's the recessive. That's different than these codominant traits. Okay, so we have to take this back off again. Okay, and then what does it say about this red-white face heifer? Okay, so that would mean what then? One of each, capital and lowercase h. Okay, so now that we've got it to this point, how many of you maybe, I'm not saying you do, but maybe have problems getting your big 4x4 set up? And for some people, gets to be trial and error, and chances are you get better at it as we go. The reason it might be a little difficult is because it's new, because it's something that you really haven't seen before. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll just set this up. That way you can have this done by tomorrow. I believe Mr. Holt was talking about your FOIL method. You've done that in algebra, correct? Where you take x times 2, or x plus 2 times x minus 3. Some classes have, some classes have not. Does that sound right? You have. Well, okay, so some classes have, some have not. This means yes. Okay, so what we mean by that, okay, so to do this, for those of you who know how to FOIL, can you speak for those who have not seen this before? Would this confuse them? I'm going by what you would give me for input. It probably would. Do you want them to speak for you? Okay, probably will. All right. So then, what this means to set this up, all right, by FOIL, okay, just like what it says, F-O-I-L. You're going to FOIL this out. So the first terms, okay, is a capital B and a lowercase h. First terms, okay. So capital B, lowercase h, okay. The outside term. This outside all the way to that outside one. Capital B, lowercase h. Okay? Now, the inside of this box here, this capital B with a line to this little case h. Okay? And then finally, the last one. The last one in the set of alleles. That's a good way of looking at it. You go by sets of alleles. Now, again, this may appear difficult just because you haven't seen it before. But the more you practice it, the better you will be at it. Okay. Is anybody lost here? Any questions? Middle, are we good? Left middle? Right middle? Left outside? Right outside? I'm sorry, we were sitting down. Okay. So, how about you? You tell me as we FOIL this. First term. So what are we going to write? So capital B, and is there anything over this B? Yes. Okay. What are your outside terms? Okay. Capital B and lowercase h all the way to the outside. Capital B, lowercase h. It's probably getting to be a little congested here. All right. What are your inside terms? Okay, so capital B for this one and capital H, like you said. Do we need a line over this? Yes, we do. Okay, and then what's your last term? Okay, so here's your last one. Okay, so capital B, lowercase h. All right. So I'm just going to pick some I'm going to pick a couple boxes at random. I'm going to say this one and that one. Okay. So inside this box, we got this little X here. Okay. What are the 4 alleles going inside of that box? Okay, let me get caught up here. Okay, so capital B and another capital B, keep those alleles together in this sense. And then what about our H's then? Do we have any lines over these B's? Okay, so this is its genetic makeup. This is just part of the probability of what you receive. So, according to our key, if this was the chances that you would get from this cross, would this organism have horns? Yes. Okay. What would its coat color possibly be? Black white face. Because what you're doing is you look back to your key, when you see 2 capital B's and only one of them with a line over from that key that you made right here, it's telling you have a black white face with horns. Okay. So now let's go over to this box. Okay. So what's all the way over here? We know they're capital B's because each one of them is going to have a capital B in there. Okay, but do they have lines over the top? Both of them, because this one does and this one does. Okay, what about H's? Okay, little with lines over the top. So this probability would say, what's its coat color? Okay, red, white face because it's 2 lines over the B's. Okay, and then 2 lowercase h's. Would that organism have horns? No, it would not. Okay, so when you make these crosses, it might have horns, it might not. Now again, this is just one of the problem-solving aspects. I don't picture egg producers or individual farmers sitting at the table or inside their shop trying to figure out the probability of what it is that you're going to have for offspring. No, this is just one of them aspects where it's a problem-solving, developing those skills for you individuals. Because even if you are college bound and you think, won't have anything to do with science, and we've had this conversation before, I believe. Okay, who can we pick on here that thinks, yes, I'm going to college? Okay, so with those individuals who have your hands up, which one of you might not be going into science but is going to college? Science? Science, I think so. Okay, science? Okay, so can we pick, well, yeah, luck of the draw. Going to college, which is great, but maybe not going into science. Do you think you have to take science classes in college? Yes, you can't. You're not going to escape that. It's something that is required. And chances are you'll probably see something like this in college. Okay? So wouldn't it be kind of a good idea? How many of you like play board games like Clue? You ever heard of that? Wouldn't it be kind of nice if you could just pick one of the pieces out that go in that blind at the beginning of the game? You already have a head start in front of everybody else. Well, that's kind of like what we're trying to do for you in high school, where you get a head start in front of everybody else. Because that way when you get there, when you start to be the top of your class, that means better recommendations, better scholarships, just means you will be much better off. Now, the rest of you think, I am not going into college anyway, but employers are always looking for people who can take initiative and do the job what needs to be done. And I think you would agree with that. Okay, so we have our genetic makeup. You just have to fill these out, and it might sound like it's a tall task, but if you have any questions, just stop in before school, after school. We're here to give you a hand. So, it's not that we're going to proceed, but we're going to go ahead and get started on your short evaluation today. Any questions? Okay, so what you're looking at here, you would observe from this box, the phenotype is its coat color. What would it look like? Be black, white face, and it would have horns. So what you would want to do is your possible outcomes would probably be something as follows. Maybe you have okay, we're now going to have a black, white face with horns. Maybe there's a black, white face pole. I'll just put pole. And then you just count the number of boxes. Maybe there's only 2 of them. Maybe there's 4 of them. Then you just count the number of boxes and tally them over here. Okay? So, yes, that is correct. You can even pick, okay, going across the side here. You tell me when to stop. Okay? So what's the phenotype for this guy? Black, white face with horns. So then, like I said, that one is, and that one is. And then you just start counting them and telling them like what you had just said. All right. I mean, good question. I mean, if you have those, I encourage you to ask.
With the question,
Yes.
the next one is like a carrier. Are we going over that sometime?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We're gonna shut this off. Going once, twice. All right. We'll catch up to you next time.